Today, women folk have gone out of their way to prove themselves in all fields, but choosing an unconventional career comes with its own hurdles and dilemma. Uh, and today we have former Indian Air Force Wing Commander, Ms. Namrita Chandi, and best-selling fiction author, Ms. Devapriya Roy, to be our guiding light on what it takes for women to nail offbeat careers. Wing Commander Namrita Chandi has been a helicopter pilot with 22 years of experience. She's been acknowledged as the first woman pilot in the world to have flown in the Siachen Glacier and also first woman in the world to have landed the highest altitude operational base in the world. She was featured in the Limca Book of Records for being the first pair of sisters in the world to have flown together as pilot and co-pilot in an aircraft. The Ministry of Women and Child Welfare has acknowledged her achievements by awarding her with the National Woman Award. Welcome, Namrata. I think I see you in the audience.
Thank you, Ratnaji. Yes, I'm there, very much there. Thank you so much for the introduction and for this opportunity to be here today.
Yes, thank you, Namrata. And in conversation with her will be a well-acclaimed author and scholar, Devapriya Roy, a master's in English literature from the famous Presidency College in Calcutta, and a PhD and holding a PhD in Natyashastra from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Devapriya has 5 published best-selling books in her kitty. Many of you would have read Friends from College or Indira, the graphic novel, or The Heat and Dust Project. These are all her books. And in fact, her first book, The Vague Woman's Handbook, was listed as a bestseller by India Today. She's extensively written on travel, literary matters, and other issues of national dailies, for national dailies like Indian Express, The Telegraph, and for magazines also like Outlook, Reader's Digest, India Today, Marie Claire, just to name a few. As versatile as her literary works, Devapriya has also worked under the aegis of the Ministry of Human Resource Development to develop a comprehensive language policy for the country. So, welcome to you also, Devapriya. Do I see
I'm very
you? Yes,
delighted.
I see you. Let me spotlight both of you.
I'm delighted to be here today. Rachna, thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Thank you to both of you. Right. So, we'll get started with our conversation, and we will deep dive into what goes into performing daunting tasks by a woman, what it takes to think out of the box to continue being versatile and creative. There's so many questions, with little time, and I would like to let the audience know that you're free to type in your questions in the chat window, or free to raise your hands also on Zoom. And then you get this live opportunity to interact both with Namrita and Devapriya. But while we wait for the questions to come in the chat, or people to raise their hands, I will take the privilege to satisfy my own curiosity, and I'm sure these questions are going to echo with the audience also very well. So Namrita, my first question is to you. Uh, what was the primary motivation for you to choose a career which is generally considered appropriate for men, given the physical fitness and endurance it demands?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rachna. I think it's a natural question that comes to mind, because what we're talking about is not the present situation. We're talking about 30 years back, when the situation was really different, the mindset was different. And, girls taking unconventional careers was not just unseen, it was practically unheard of, right? And so when we grew up, we knew the options were really limited. People either wanted to be engineers or doctors or IAS. And there's nothing more than that which was there to consider. But growing up in the circumstances that I grew up, I always knew that there is something special that I need to do in this world, something which is out of the box, not run-of-the-mill kinds. And this drive and desire to just do something which is more challenging and more different, and which ordinary do not get to do, is what probably was my driving force. And like they say, the law of universe, the law of attraction, whatever you desire, whatever you just manifest, it just comes out true, and you do, the opportunities come your way. So I got the right opportunity, and I made use of it, and that's how I ended up in a career which was those days absolutely unconventional, because we were the first ones to one of the first women, so to say, to get into and venture into this terrain, which was totally 100% male dominated.
Namrita ji, your thoughts align very much with the mind management concepts that Swamiji also mentioned through the book. This law of attraction is so important, and I think the law of attraction, like all these divine laws, they don't look at the gender of the person, right? They just apply themselves. So irrespective of whether we are a man or a woman, I think we have the freedom to choose to dream big and choose wisely in our as per our passions. So, Devapriya, my question to you is, uh, the, you were in a relatively sort of settled profession of editing and pursuing academics. What inspired you to take this plunge to become a full-fledged author? What was the thought process behind this move? And was there any particular experience that drove you uh, towards like a settled career, towards something new that you
Dramatic, and
wanted to
yes,
venture with?
something that that everyone says leads to poverty and being unstable, and so all the things, as Namrita ji was saying, that when, if and when girls are encouraged to pursue careers, the emphasis is on on stable and things like being doctors or engineers or IAS and so on. I think, see, in my case, I was always a reader before anything else. Perhaps because I was an only child, perhaps my grandmother was a great reader, and Calcutta, where I grew up, in in every household, and this is not just privileged to the middle or the upper classes in that sense, in every household, uh, newspapers and books brought fiction along, right? So in in Bengal we have this tradition. There's, during the Durga pujas, all the newspapers, they publish this puja varshiki, which is like a fat magazine full of stories and so it'll have novels, it'll have short stories, it'll have essays, it'll have poetry, it'll have everything. It'll be very cheap, and everyone has access to those, right? So the sort of the world of fiction, it came to me easily. I was that way, I was I was privileged, and somehow I think being absorbed in that, it taught me something which many years later, only when I studied the Natya Shastra, only when I learned about the rasa theory, only then that I understood that why art as fiction appeals to us so much. And it's not just books, even when you're watching a film or when you're watching a play, what is happening is, in that moment, you are able to rise above your own life, and the life of the person you're reading about becomes supreme, right? So in a sense, in some way, the process is similar to a spiritual experience, right? That the immediate material conditions of our own life, they recede, and that the world that is only alive through words, only in our head, that takes supremacy. So perhaps there was something of that over there. And my I grew up with my great grandmother, also with my grandmother's mother, and she was a great teller of stories. So the stories of the Ramayana, of the Mahabharata, all the stories that are orally passed down from grandmothers to granddaughters, that sort of thing, that surrounded me. So I think instinctively I was heading towards a life of reading first. Now, when you read, then at some point you want to write, but the writing is much less than than the pursuit of. We just had Dipanjali sing so beautifully. I wish I had a talent like that, which doesn't need words, which doesn't need anything else. Writing is more limited. The other thing is, just because I'm rambling so much, is when I see somebody like Namrita ji, she is so inspiring that then, then I want to know more about her, to write about her. That seems to me to be the medium of expressing my understanding, my appreciation, you know. So the lives of, especially the lives of women, to render that in prose, there's something over there.
Wow. Devapriya, you established a very beautiful connection of how you recede from material conditions that have been bothering you and your life, your mind, how you recede from that when you just immerse yourself, in a very good reading, and how you rise above your life. What a beautiful connection. Going back to Namrata ji, can you share some of your experience from your initial days of joining the Indian Air Force? Did you ever get bogged down by the rigor that the training academy demanded? And if you ever if you ever got those thoughts of quitting, then how did you ensure that you did not do it?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. It just makes me go back to my training days. The background I come from is absolutely civil. So we had nobody to guide us, to tell us what is in store or how to be prepared for the days that are going to come ahead. So we just went like a blank, slate, absolutely blank, with an open mind to take things in the stride as they came along. And but when we went there, it was like we were prepared it's going to be tough, but how tough we didn't know really. So I know, because we were just used to being mollycoddled by our mom, eating those ghee soaked parathas, and we've never gone into a regime which included first day in the morning going for a 5 kilometer run, and then coming back and doing the PT and the parade and all that stuff, and then going for flying and learning about flying. And it was so tight, in a way. It was good because it never gave us that opportunity to overthink or to just realize what's happening. We were absolutely on an auto mode. We had no time to speculate or comprehend or even try to understand what's going on. It was just going on, and so much was going on at that point in time. So the only thing was we had to be just present 100%, right? And time was flying like that. Days were flying like that. And whatever limited time we got to sleep, we slept like a child. We were so tired, mentally and physically exhausted. But yes, there were times when you came across, real challenges in terms of your delivering. When you were doing your flying, you had to, come out in flying colors. You had to clear all your sorties to be able to fly solo. There were difficult phases when you were not able to learn a particular skill while flying, and then you were almost on the verge of, whether you'll be chucked out, whether you will pass the flying test, because you don't get many opportunities, right? So either you're there or you're not there. So that those moments did come in my life. Absolutely, they did. And I was like absolutely unsure. If I don't perform in that one sortie, that one chance I've got, I could be chucked out. But what kept me going was that failure for me was not an option. Absolutely not. And I had not given myself that thing that I can fail or I will fail. And I was I think that mental, we all have that mental ability and the mental resilience and strength that exists inside of us. And that just shows up when you come across challenges. It just shows up because there have been instances when we have seen and heard that a mother, she could lift the car single-handedly just because her child was injured. So we have that power, that innate intelligence that exists in all of us. And that just comes out when it is required to come out. The only thing is we need to recognize and channelize that. And probably I was doing that without being aware of these things that, the theoretical part of it, or having read that this existed. I did not know. I did not. Now the wisdom that I have, I was a child at that point in time. I hardly had that wisdom, but I have used those. I've applied those principles unknowingly. I've done that because, when you are just so focused on what you want to do in life, when you have that clarity and a vision of what you want to see your life to be and unfold over a period of time or number of years, I think that all these principles, they start playing in your life. And now when I look back, I said, yes, that happened because of this principle, and that happened because of this principle. Now I can correlate. I can just, connect the dots. But probably that point in time, because when you're so focused, I think that is paramount, right? Your hard work, your determination, your will to do something, and not to give up, right? Irrespective of what challenges you face, is what sailed me through all the times, and the difficult and the very difficult times that I came across in my lifetime. Yes.
Wow, challenges helping us discover our innate intelligence. That is something that we all need to remember when we are going through tough times. When we look back, then it doesn't feel like a big deal. But then when we are going through, that is when the going gets the toughest. So either you're there, not there, you have to make it, or you make it. Wonderful to hear that, Namrita ji. One more question for you. How supportive or non-supportive was your family and your close circle when you took this decision of this career choice, which is stereotyped as a man's job, like you said, 20, 30 years ago? And did you emotionally or mentally seek approvals unknowingly or knowingly? Did you ever do that?
No, I think that was one thing I never did. I never did, because I realized that when you have to do something, if you start seeking approvals, and now that principle I connect to when I did that practically, when you start seeking other people's opinions and approvals and start living your life as to their wants and requirements and needs, I think you tend to lose track. And that is where most of us go wrong, right? We are not here fulfilling our desires and dreams. We fulfill someone else's expectations. But luckily, when I was during that phase, I got a lot of support from my parents. My father has been really supportive. My mother, yes, she was, she's a lady who fears a lot. She's got all kinds of fears. And, to her, both her daughters going and doing this kind of flying where there was so much of challenge involved, and she would just remember the accidents that have happened, and she and nothing else, and that would really scare us. And she would always tell us, don't fly at night, be careful when you're flying, and all that stuff. And we would just kind of laugh and ignore her at that point in time. But then yes, she was very, very, not because of doing an unconventional role, because of she was scared about our lives and our safety, more importantly. But my father, he's been a pillar of strength. He's always told us that you are the lioness, and there's nothing, it's absolutely nothing that can stop you. So I think that faith, it's very important. Now I think we as parents need to learn that, to imbibe that faith in our kids, to make them realize that there's nothing that you cannot do, or there's nothing that is impossible. So probably I'm thankful to the universe that part of struggle, which can be really unnerving when it comes, I did not have to face that. So that was a huge support for me to just go ahead and do what I wanted to do in life.
Okay, another beautiful story, like we heard from Payal, her father support, hearing from you also now, how father said that you are the lioness, sort of an inspiration for all the men who have joined with us today on how to support your daughter, sister, wife, mother in whatever way you can, motivate them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
There is a question from the audience right now. So Pritha Rao is asking you, Namrita ji, how did your male colleagues support you in the academy?
Colleagues, yes, they do support you. They help you out, because you get into situations where you need guidance and help, and you need to ask them, are you also going through the same thing? Because when we have a common instructor, the instructor just forgets whether you are a male or a female in the cockpit, right? So we would be punched, and we would be beaten up, and we would be abused, and all kinds of things would happen in the cockpit. And rightly so, because the aircraft doesn't know who's flying the aircraft, it's a male or a female. And even the instructor forgets that, it's a good sign, because then there's no disparity of gender, and we would take it in a very positive stride. It was never as if, why is he hitting me, or is he abusing me, and using all kinds of words in the cockpit. And the same guy who would come on the ground would be the most gentleman, and you would never hear him raise his voice. But in the cockpit, he just would change his personality, because that was the requirement and the demand, and he was doing it so that we learn the right things the right way. So we absolutely understood that. But then sharing these experiences with our colleagues, whenever we got a lot of it, and understanding that they're also going through a lot similarly, I think that was a great help and support. And yes, we as a group, we did support each other a lot whenever we came across challenges. And I think that team spirit is something which is so important. And I realized the importance of that during my days serving with the Indian Air Force. That was one big leadership lesson I've learned, was, how team spirit is important. It's make or break,
Absolutely.
and everybody needs to be together as a team.
Absolutely. And team spirit is, it's necessary as salt is in food. I think team spirit is necessary in every endeavor of life. Uh, I think the key thing that it has just stuck in my mind with what you just said. We should not, like as women, we should not be expecting us to be treated softly and nicely just because we are women. If we need parity, then it has to be parity on all grounds. So that's something that all of us need to imbibe.
Absolutely.
Devapriya,
Yes.
uh, writing requires immense inspiration and creativity to flow into your words, and it demands like constant freshness in the content that you're producing. So, what is it that fuels the creative spark in you, and how do you get over your writer's block?
Hmm. Difficult question, especially, why? Because writers are, are rather superstitious. So, we don't ask too many questions about how is it happening, because then you think, oh my God, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to be too scientific about it. Uh, I think, you know, uh, I have a more pragmatic answer for writer's block, because this I tell my students as well, because sometimes they also ask that, how do we get over a writer's block? My theory is that a writer's block is essentially your brain telling you that you've taken some kind of a wrong step in your writing. So, you see, in the world that you build as a writer, now that world is sort of complete in and of itself, right? So, even though it's flowing through you, you are not in control, right? You're some kind of a vessel. So what happens is you have to listen very carefully. There's something that you're intuiting, right? And that's why, again, I keep going back to that analogy where I say that, it's more than the sum of its parts, right? It's more than, you have a good idea, you have the time in the world to sit and write it, but yet, are you able to write a book or not? There is an X factor that, that comes into it. So you can have all the tools, you can have the clay, but whether you're able to build a murti that you can then pray to, that's a, there's a lot of slip over there. So my feeling is that a writer's block happens in the middle when you're writing something. It's an indication from your deeper self that, that perhaps you're not listening closely enough, that you've taken a step somewhere. So perhaps backtrack a little bit, go back, maybe go back to the early chapters, read the early chapters and see, have you said something which seems a little bit wrong in terms of character development in a later chapter? Is there something over there? So that's what I feel in terms of writer's block. How do I get over it? I read. I just take a break from writing, and I read. So my theory is that, that there's a correlation between the number of great words you read and the great words you write. So if you want to write a novel, then you must read a lot of novels, right? That, the language is of that. It flows through that community. So yeah. Yeah, did I answer, Rachna? I don't think I did.
Yes, yes, absolutely. You banned it right there. So a lot of common threads that I'm seeing, from the morning on how we need to connect with our inner voice, right? Writer's block also happening when we stop listening to our inner voice. We have to go back, connect with ourselves, and uh, you also, Devapriya, you gave me a spiritual connection that writers or anybody, any profession, anybody doing well in a profession, they are only a kind of vessel, for the divinity to flow through them. and the fact that the sum is more than it's more than the sum of its part. That's very true. When we look at the universe in whole, we cannot make out the the logic behind
Mm.
creativity, the logic behind what the creator would have thought.
And
So, so
the interesting thing is that there might be a lot of writers who are atheists in practice, right? And yet,
Mhm.
and yet, when you bring it down, they'll be rational. They'll say we are rationalists. We don't. But the process, they know that the process is intuitive. Over there, you'll find that they are willing to, to suspend disbelief to enter that portal, right? There is some kind of a portal through which you enter. So writers do different things. I read about this one writer, a very successful writer, American. What she would do is she needed to sit in a space which was dark, right? uh, so basically she got her husband to paint the walls black because that helped her see. So when I read it, I could tell that it's in a sense it's that sort of a portal, like the darkness in a sense, as we think about the womb and then being reborn. So you're reborn every day in that text, when you're trying to intuit.
Wow, wow, okay. So Divya, you've had like so many bestsellers to your name. What is your advice for somebody who is not yet, I mean, who loves writing, who loves reading, but is not yet ready to pursue a full-time career as writers? Because it may not sound that lucrative as a regular 9 to 6 job,
Mm.
and sometimes, there are times when both men and women, they find their calling at a very later stage of
Mm.
their lives. They are averse to walk on the uncharted path, leaving the security of their current position. So what is your advice to them, and how do we grow over these kind of mindsets?
Mm. So, see, because life itself is, to the writer, life itself is the biggest raw material, right? So I would say that, don't look down on your 9 to 5 job either, because that also gives you a great deal of material, right, to write about, to bring lives alive. So in a sense, we also, when you teach writing, you also tell people that you must do interesting things in order to write about, right? So don't worry so much that that your days are going in some activity and you're not being able to take that time. Even if you write a little bit every day, okay, or even if you read every day, I would say you're doing something in terms of sadhana, okay? Because as long as you're in the practice. So I was listening to Swamiji's Ram Katha. I had asked Rachna to send it to me, and he tells it so beautifully. So one of the things that he says in the beginning is कि रामचरितमानस ठीक है, अगर आप पढ़ नहीं पाए तो कोई बात नहीं, थोड़े कुछ चौपाई सुन लें. अगर कुछ चौपाई नहीं सुन पाए कोई बात नहीं, जो सुन रहा है उनसे जाके मिल लें. तो I would say the same, that even if you're not able to leave everything to do to write all the time, doesn't matter. You write a little bit, okay? At least read, at least 15 minutes a day. This is what I tell everyone. This is my new theory, that 15 minutes a day you take out and you read some good writing, whether it's poetry, whether it's fiction. Read in your mother tongue, read in English, read in, it doesn't matter what. Take 15 minutes out, okay? Everyone goes through their own artistic journey. So so it's all right. But if you can just for 15 minutes let go of your other life and read or write, that's a beginning.
Wow, like starting in a small way, taking baby steps, just 15 minutes for your passion every day. Beautiful lesson, Devapriya. Thank you so much. Um, so going back to Namrata ji, many a times, people create more fear, especially women, like, they create more fear in their head than what it is in reality. Uh, and as a woman, like, did that ever happen to you? Did you ever happen to do that to yourself? So, for example, in your case, like, volunteering to the highest altitude, like to fly to the highest altitude, how did you keep yourself like all pumped up? How did you keep your spirits high? to constantly push yourself to accomplish that goal, which was seemingly very daunting.
Yeah, that's a good question, Rachna, because primarily we talk about fear and we talk about women facing fears because we realize that the root cause of all the issues that women face are primarily the origin from fear. And we women have all kinds of fears, like the fear of being rejected, the fear of failure, fear of unknown, right? A fear of growing old, fear of not being loved, fear of being lonely, all kinds of fears we have. But the fact is that when I started digging deeper into where does fear origin from and how real is it, I was shocked to know that 80% of the fears that we have do not even exist. They will never even happen. And yet we live them day to day. We live them in our thoughts, as if they're happening. And the thoughts are so magical because your subconscious does not distinguish between what is real and what is unreal. So any thought that is happening in your mind is taken as in your subconscious as if it's actually happening. And then your response to it is as if it's happening in your present. And this is one thing that women fall prey into a lot because the fears from your past experiences and the fears from your future frustrations are occupying the majority of your headspace. And that's how you learn to,
Censor yourself.
yeah,
Stop
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, absolutely. You stop yourself from venturing into new territories, coming out of your comfort zone, doing the things that you're actually capable of doing. But but nevertheless, there are some fears which are real, right? And you got to face them because if you run away from those fears become bigger and bigger, and they will overtake you. But they're just 15%. But in my case, for instance, I had a fear. I had a huge fear of heights. I had a fear of getting road sick. I would get road sick. Any journey more than an hour, I would be popping in my pills to ensure I don't get road sick. So I knew they were my weaknesses. They probably it was a fear that had originated some point in time in my childhood. But I knew I had to deal with it to fulfill my dreams. So the only way you deal with your fears is to face them head on, right? And not avoid them. So I decided to do something for to overcome my fears. So what I did was probably I went to and did my para jumps, like 5 jumps from the falling free from the sky to overcome my fear of heights. And once I did that, I realized, my God, there's nothing. And that's how you need to recognize what are your real fears and what can you do to overcome them. So after that, after you overcome, you the sense of that strength that comes within you having conquered those fears is immense, right? And that is what propels you to take more higher steps in life. Yes, but coming to Siachen, I had no fears, absolutely, because that was something I was actually, I wanted to do that. I really wanted to do that, right? It didn't come as an imposition. I asked for it. I volunteered for it. So I wouldn't have done that if I had any kinds of fears. There was nothing stopping me. Yes, everything was against the temperatures, the conditions, everything they work against you, right? It's harsh environment. It is difficult flying conditions. It is absolutely zero error because any one mistake you make, it can lead to a fatal accident. And we did lose a lot of colleagues during our times, that tenure that we had. So yes, there was a fear of life. It was there. Absolutely. Not that, but you do not let that overpower you because every time, and that was taught to us while we were cadets, right? Every time there was an accident during the training, it was made sure that we all fly the very next day the same aircraft. And do not let that fear get into us, because the moment you start thinking and allow that fear to overpower you, then that is what starts to control your decisions and actions. And in most likely cases, the decisions and actions that you take from that space of being fearful will not be conducive to your dreams that you want to fulfill. So these are some of the tactics that we were trained basically during our training days to be more resilient, to be facing our fears, and if they are real, just to deal with them head on. And that's what I've been doing, and I still follow the same principles till date.
Wow, facing fears head on. I think a
It's
lot of
very
women, especially
inspiring.
women, need to do that. Very, very inspiring. Yeah. Um, And I think, yeah, like even if, like you mentioned that, you had the fear of losing life. It's a real fear. It's not imaginary. But then you did not allow that fear to overcome you. That I think shows your mental strength and the kind of strength that dawned upon you after, you had or because you had faced your fears head on so many times. So great to see your ambitious nature, and the fact that you volunteered yourself to fly at to Siachen. um so Devapriya, when you, like, we're talking about fears here, so when you started pursuing a writer's career, did you have any apprehension or any fear of not making your mark here or not being able to survive as an author?
So, the world of the arts is, fear works in a slightly different way. One is, of course, that, you're afraid that, I'm not going to be able to make a meaningful livelihood from it. What am I going to do? How am I going to earn? That's one. The other is more fundamental. So, when Namrita ji was talking about fear, and I could feel it all over again. It's very fundamental because you're afraid that you're not going to be able to write well again. Okay, you're not going to be able to write another book, and that fear comes back. It doesn't matter if your last book was very successful or not. The that success or the lack of it doesn't make it easier the next time, because you have to go through the process all over again. So in a sense, as Amrita ji was saying, is that once you can only overcome that fear through a kind of a place deep within you, from where you draw that strength. That's So you sit and write, and sentence by sentence that world comes alive, and you can only tell yourself, I've done it in the past, I hopefully I'll be able to do it again. But that fear is very real, that it may not come alive. And that's something that all artists sort of wrestle with. And it's difficult because it's so uncertain, because with especially because writers work only with words, right? There's no canvas, there is no material that you shape into a sculpture or something. So whether you'll be able to bring those words and let them sing on the page or not, that's a very real fear. And you conquer it again by just doing it every day, by showing up, by trying, by deleting, by trying again, you know. And the other thing, which Namita ji had talked about right in the beginning, which was about approval. So I feel that what happens with women writers is, because women are also, from the time they are young, they are in many ways they do self censorship. There are certain things in which they'll just decide in a classroom, or they'll decide, oh, okay, I won't do it. Let others do it, and so on. So that is very difficult in writing, because again, like in flying, you have to forget who you are. So whether you're writing about women, or whether you're writing about men, whether you're writing about nations, whether you're writing about war, or you're writing about fashion, women tend to sort of censor themselves a little bit when it comes to writing as well. And so there I would say that, read great women writers. Don't ask for approval from people around you. Seek mental approval, from other great writers in the past, whether men or women. Read them and tell yourself that they've given me permission to write like a great writer. That I'm not going to be held back by anything.
Right. So how to keep yourself motivated, how to constantly, keep talking to yourself. Very important to do
And to be
for all
free
of us,
here.
right?
That's the difficult thing. That's what Namrita ji was also saying, right? You to be free in the mind. Don't censor yourself. In that place, there's nothing between you and, your thoughts. We bring in those censors, right? So that's where, if we can let it go, give approval to ourselves, give permission to ourselves.
Right. Um, I think this is something that Payal was also talking in the morning, that we build walls against ourselves, and we have to just stop doing that as women. So, I know we are running short of time, but I just want to remind the audience, if you have your questions, then please type it into the chat window and I can take it up. Namrita ji will be back to you. You are doing uh, a leadership role in business development now. How was your transition from a flying career to your current business development role?
Yeah. It was again getting into a different domain, which I had not, because I was doing more of operational job till now, and now it's getting into corporate. And I think the basics remain the same, but yet you need to learn the games of the rules of the game, which are totally different. So it did take me a little time to learn, to master those ropes and become better. But I think it's a good thing in a way, because you've got to keep challenging yourself, because otherwise, any point you mastered anything and now you know it all, have done it all. Because what made me change from my flying career to this was that I've done all kinds of missions. I've flown across the country, the length and the breadth, and done everything possible. And I was like, what next for me now? And when I started asking myself this question, I did not get an answer. And what was it that would challenge me or make me grow or learn new things? And I did not get an answer to that as well, because this was something I'd mastered and I had to do it again and again and again. I did that for 5 years after I left the Air Force. But then what next? And then I realized that I have to probably, give up my flying shoes and get into a territory, which again is now going to be a challenge. And I did that and got that opportunity. I got into corporate and learned a lot of things, unlearned some things, because forged the way of your bringing up and the way you're just so forthright about and so direct about things. And here you have to learn a little bit of diplomacy. And so unlearn few things and learn few things, and just kept keeping my basics that I had learned intact, because those were the foundation and they still hold good, like, being resilient in terms of in face of challenges, or how important is team spirit, and all probably the leadership qualities that I learned during my tenure with Indian Air Force. I think they were priceless and they still hold good. But yes, that was something I again, asked for it, or for the challenge, because the moment you get into a comfort zone, irrespective of where you are in life, that place, you get stagnant in life, and then you start becoming stuck in life. And then it's like, if you're not moving forward, perhaps you're moving backwards. You're not even at the same place or a period of time. And then I asked myself this question: where is my passion? Where is, what is it that I'm here for? And these deeper questions started coming out. And then I realized I need to seek my passion, because that is what will give me true fulfillment, apart from all the, accolades you've gained, or the fame you've had, or whatever you've done. There's something more to life. And then I started seeking those answers. And, probably it was a beautiful journey again that I've undertaken now, and I'm working for a cause that we will talk about later. But yes, it's been quite a journey. Still challenging. I'm still trying to learn, becoming better version of myself every day, professionally as well as personally. And it's an ongoing journey.
So Namrita ji, I have attended one of your trainings, and you lead this initiative called the Successful Women. So I just want to, if you could throw some light on that, and how women here who are associated with JKYog and in this platform, in this event today, how can they benefit from that?
Yes, Rachna. So basically, the Successful Woman is an initiative which was born just out of passion. And this was to help women to unlock their next level of personal growth, so that they can create a life and lifestyle that they truly desire. And we realize that a lot of women get stuck in life after they've reached a certain stage, right? And they do not know where to look forward to, because the factors could be innumerable, like biological and physiological and psychological and emotional and mental and so on and so forth. And they needed some push, right? That confidence for them to regain their confidence and go on a journey of holistic success on all spheres of life, which includes your mindset, your heart set, and soul set. So these are the three pillars of the initiative that I am running. And what we kind of talk about is an experience that has come from more than 40 years of research and some of the insights and tools that we have learned from our own life experiences and from our mentors, right, that we have in the world. And another thing that we realized that was that we spend prime time of our career preparing, prime time of our life preparing for our careers. But nobody teaches us how to, determine the quality of our life and life experiences. Nobody teaches us that. We only learn by making mistakes and then move forward. But how about somebody giving you a kind of, everything on a platter, something that we've learned from our own experiences that could accelerate your growth to moving forwards rather than learning from your own mistakes. Because a lot of times when people don't even learn because they're not even aware of what's happening around, right? So this is what came to our mind, and we thought of doing something about, the women, and the journey started with first investing in ourselves a big time, discovering who we really are, why are we there on this earth, what is our passion, and a lot of spirituality coming in played a very important role here as well. So it's basically a pursuit that absorbs us fully and gives us a sense of meaning and joy and fulfillment when we are committed to help women to unlock their next level of growth, of their potential. And that is what gives us so much of happiness. So my partner is Joanna James. She's from Australia. Both of us work together on this, and we do a lot of podcasts. We get across women who are accomplished around the globe to learn lessons from their journey so that we can get inspired. So there are lots happening on this. And we're there on Instagram and on Facebook and so on and so forth. Yeah, we're doing a lot of webinars, and we're doing free sessions for women as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Namrita ji. I'm sure a lot of women would look up, the successful women on Insta or on Facebook, and they can continue to stay associated with you. Uh, Devapriya, we would love to know a little more about your forthcoming projects as well. It's one of the questions from our audience also. What is it that our curious readers can look forward from you?
I think, there's this book that I have always been meaning to write, but I have been a little afraid because I keep thinking that I'm not ready to write it yet. So I think from today's session, I've actively been, inspiring myself to think that that's the book to write. The one that I have been procrastinating with all these years. I want to also sort of, become more fearless, because I think, like I was saying, every day there are these little things within us which hold us back. And so it's a daily quest, to remind yourself, to set yourself a little more free. So I'm doing that. And yeah, so I think more serious writing, that's what I want to do.
Okay. Okay. So more serious writing, I think, would give a different flavor to your novels. Devapriya, I've been reading one of your books, and it just mesmerizes me to see your creative spirit. I would, I think there are more questions pouring in, but we would have to halt here. Like I said in the beginning, so many questions and just so little time. I hope we have another event and we call both of you again to continue this conversation. My heartfelt thanks to both of you to join us today and to provide your inspiration from your own different fields. They are all very, very, very energizing for all of us to move forward with vigor and zeal.
Thank you, Devapriya.
Pleasure
sharing the stage with you, and
Same.
I think we'll have to connect with you now. Thank you, Rachna.
Absolutely.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, JKYog. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.